Hi, it's Joe Mazumdar of Exploration Insights. I'm at the PDAC 2026 edition of the Metals Investment Forum, and with me right now is Darren Klinck, president of Arras Minerals. Darren.
Great to see you again, Joe.
So Arras Minerals, copper, gold, grassroots exploration in Kazakhstan. So why Kazakhstan, Darren?
You know, we got involved in Kazakhstan about 4 years ago, and over the last 24 months, we've really been accelerating what we've been doing there. It's a great place to operate. It's one of the lowest cost jurisdictions to be, and they've gone through a lot of changes really through the leadership of President Tokayev, not only around mining but in business in general there, and updated the mining law and really opened it up for Western investment. That was our thesis. We thought that 4 years
So
ago.
you were saying in your presentation that it was modeled on Western Australia.
Western Australia, yeah. I mean, they say 80% Western Australia mining law and about 20% out of Ontario and Quebec. But our thesis was that this was a country with this new sort of, foundations, that we're going to see more and more interest from Western companies. And in fact, that's what's happened. And so we're focused on
Big
large
and small.
yeah, big and small, but large scale copper gold porphyries in the northeastern part of the country on an underexplored belt, largely dealing with 5 to 25 meters of cover.
Yeah.
And 13 months ago, we had our first set of results, and we're obviously on to some pretty interesting things.
So you got a huge land package. So how do you focus? I know you're focused right now on the Elemes and the Bear Sky area, but how do you actually focus with everything you have?
So yeah, we were pretty strategic about 2.5 years ago, recognizing that, in particular in tougher markets for us, that we had to kind of pick our spots. And we were fortunate. We had strong support from Teck Resources. They're a 9.9% shareholder. And we did discussions with them along with a few other groups, but to Teck's credit, they stepped forward and they actually funded a $5 million generative program across about 1,900 square kilometers. So about 2/3 of the license package that were largely earlier stage, mainly work that had been done by the Soviets between the 1950s and 1980s. We kind of maintained some of the more advanced licenses that had a little bit more work on it, and one of those is Elemes. And so we've been able to, over the last 2 years, not only move Elemes forward, make a couple of new discoveries, but now with the completion of the generative program that Tech funded, we've been able to kind of take that 1,900 square kilometers and synthesize it down to a number of different targets that we can start to now follow up ourselves over the next 12 to 18 months.
Like you were saying in your presentation, like the power is cheap, like 2.5 cents or something like that per kilowatt hour.
2.5, 3 cents a kilowatt hour, yeah.
And then drilling costs are ridiculously cheap.
Yeah. So it's about $110, $120 a meter to drill holes. You have to fill up your truck with diesel. It's 45 cents a liter, and great skilled, workforce there as well. Lots of, students coming out of engineering and geology. And so when you put that all together, the input costs for operating copper mines in Kazakhstan is somewhere between 1/8 and 1/10 from even a labor perspective on what you would find in Arizona or Chile or Australia. And then when you look at your energy inputs, which of course are a big part of any sort of mining operation around the world, again, it's a fraction of the cost. And so all of a sudden, operating copper mines as an example, right in our part of the world, 0.33% copper, 0.13 grams per ton gold, so call it 0.5 equivalent, producing copper at about $1 a pound. And
That's Boshiko.
that's the Boshiko mine. But it's a good example because at the end of the day, we're 45 kilometers down the road, and I mean, that's what we're starting to, that's what we're looking for. That's what we're actually starting to find in terms of those sorts of grades and widths. And again, we're kind of 13 months into the first set of results.
And with respect to what you're doing at LMS, I know you're ramping up again with respect to drilling. You've got more rigs on it right now in terms of the bigger program coming up in 2026.
Yeah, so we completed really as of the end of last year about 15,000 meters of drilling. There was an initial 4,000, 5,000 meter program that was completed, and then we had the first set of those results coming out in January and February of last year. So as I said, 12, 13 months. We were fortunate to have strong support and raise capital in the markets in April last year, really before things started to take off. And so we raised a $60 million Canadian and then kicked off the drilling again the middle part of the year. And by Christmas, had done almost another 10,000 meters. So we got 15,000 meters in. We're planning now to do 20,000 meters this year. We've gone from 2 drills operating to 4, so we've got 2 that are operating right now. In another couple weeks, we'll have 2 more drills coming. And 80% of that focus is really in Elemes, in that Bereski trend, in particular, Bereski Central, Bereski North, Bereski East. But we know that between Bereski Central and Bereski North, those are 2 different porphyry centers. And combined across, an 8 or 9 kilometer trend, we've got, less than 30 holes. So, we're really just scratching the surface here.
But what gets me is, like, the spacing between a lot of these holes, like, they're 500 meters to a kilometer apart sometimes.
Hole between Bereski North and Bereski Central, there's 5 kilometers. I mean, we've done the geochem work. We know that those are 2 different porphyry centers. And as most of your, followers and viewers will know, is that typically in these sorts of systems, you often get clusters of porphyries. Again, because we have no geology to look at, it's not obvious. And so we're looking at, as flat as this floor here in many cases. So you've got to rely on the geophysics, the soils, and then ultimately starting to drill. And we're off to a good start. I think we're really excited about this year. I mean, our objective for this year is really to take those, that initial drilling, those initial sort of discoveries, and start to be able to, put some geometry around these and demonstrate that we've got a deposit or deposits. We know that if we can kind of put anything together that's even remotely close to what we've already starting to drill, we know the grades are as good, if not better, than what is, really powering some of the lowest cost copper mines in the world. And we love the jurisdiction, and, there's plenty more to find.
So, the CEO actually lives in Kazakhstan,
Tim's
which is a
based there. Yeah.
big, huge advantage. But there's more companies coming into Kazakhstan.
Yeah, so Tim's based in Almaty with his family. He's been there now for about 3 years, and that was when I first met Tim. That was a big part of, I think, the kind of the opportunity for myself, but also for the company, is that kind of that team effort where he's based on the ground, close to where it's all happening, and working with the local team. And it is a long ways to get to if you're
Yeah.
trying to manage these from remote control, whether it be in Vancouver or Toronto or otherwise. But our thesis, as I said 4 years ago, was that we felt we would see more and more interest from groups to come into the country because of the stability, because of the mining law, because of the endowment, the fact that it's really been underexplored since the fall of the Soviet Union. And sure enough, I mean, that's what we're seeing, right? I mean, Rio and Fortescue were there before we got involved, mainly focused on copper exploration. But now, of course, tech's arrived. Barrick is come into the country as well. First Quantum is there. You've recently seen Robert Freeland through Ivanhoe Mines, Endeavour Mining, B2 Gold now is there as well. And then you have other international parties, such as Zijin acquired an asset that Resource Capital Funds had acquired, developed, built, and then sold to Zijin for 1.2 billion last year. So lots of international interest. You've got Turkish companies, you got lots of Middle Eastern investment, and of course the world today is we're all looking for the same things. We're looking for critical minerals, and ultimately Kazakhstan is one of the best places in the world to find those.
So great jurisdiction, active drill program. So what are we looking at in terms of catalysts for the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, so as we go for now from 2 drills to 4 drills, we're gonna 6, 70, 80% of our focus will be in Elemes for sure. And so
Both Bereski and Amandai?
so Amandai will start here in the spring. Once the snow starts to clear, we'll get in and do some invasive tiller, top of bedrock drilling, and then that'll lead us, I think, in terms of alongside with the geophysics that we completed late last year and got most of the data back last month, actually in January. Will give us targets then to start drilling as well. But definitely, I think, as far as the drilling goes, a big focus on Bereski North, as I said, Bereski Central, and Bereski East, starting to demonstrate that these are deposits that are going to start to come into their own, even though that, it takes time to drill these things out. And then ultimately, with some of these regional licenses, we've got other work plans. There's geophysics follow up, etc., to kind of work on that initial $5 million generative program that was completed late last year. And yeah, I mean, that's going to keep us pretty busy. And I think ultimately, our objective is, if we can demonstrate that we've got a deposit or more along this trend at Bereski, then there's plenty of upside, I think, for shareholders and investors, and that's what we're all really focused on.
There you go. So lots of catalysts funded.
Yep. Yeah. So we the funding that we did last year gave us enough funding for both our programs last year and this year. So we're in good shape there. And again, one of the lowest cost jurisdictions in the
So
world.
more
So
bang for buck.
the dollars go a long ways in Kazakhstan, which is a great advantage for us.
All right. That's Arras Minerals, grassroots copper and gold exploration in a good jurisdiction in central Kazakhstan. That's it for me, Joe Mazumdar, Exploration Insights, PDAC 2026 edition of the Minerals Investor Forum. Thanks for listening.